And off we go. We're online. What? No. This is there's some people in Tainan and Kaohsiung that are watching us. Yeah, so I broadcast it to them. Wow. Yeah. Right. Kind of wow. Technology. Use it. What is 我没想到? What did you say? What did you say?
I'm surprised that you have such a system.
Yeah.
Why surprised? You have it.
I think. Yes, we have to. Yes. Okay, so today we're going to discuss, like the topic, the genesis of routine, and why is Judaism so consistent? What we're going to focus today about prayer, service, prayer. We have several prayers a day. So this non-Jewish fellow who wanted to write an academic report or a thesis on Jewish prayers. So he decided he's going to travel to Israel, and he's going to ask people about the Jewish prayers. So he decided he doesn't know how many prayers are there. So he decided he's going to ask the people. So he stopped a person, and he said, "How many prayers Jewish people pray a day?" He said 3. Right. But this guy, this non-Jewish guy, he knows the Judaism. You ask one person, you get 5 answers, right? So he said, okay, he's not going to settle with that. He moves on in the street. He runs into somebody else. He says, how many prayers a day? He says 4. 4? Okay. And then he goes on, and he meets another Jew, and he says, how many prayers you pray a day? He says 5. So he's all confused. It's 3 or 4 or 5. What does he do? So then he goes to the rabbi. He says, okay, so maybe the people don't know. I'll go to the rabbi. He said, I'm doing this academic work. I want to know how many prayers a day. And I get all these answers, 3, 4, or 5. So the rabbi says, actually, everybody is right. Everybody is right. He says like this. He says, the first person you met, he prays every day. He goes to shul every day. Like Yoram said, he prays the morning prayer, the afternoon prayer, the evening prayer. The second person you met, he goes only on Shabbat. On Shabbat, we have an added prayer, Tfilat Musaf. On Shabbat, we have 4 prayers. So he doesn't go to shul the whole week. He just goes on Shabbat. And the third Jew you met, he only goes on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, we have 5 prayers. So that's why they all gave you different answers. So I had a person I know that wasn't religious, and he became quite religious, and he used to go to shul, not here in Taiwan, but not in Taiwan, in Israel. He used to go every morning, and then after a little bit of a time, he stopped coming to shul in the morning, and he only comes on Shabbat. So my friend asks him, "What's wrong? What happened to you? Why did you stop coming?" And he said he's quite disappointed. Before he became religious, this whole religion part was very exciting to him. He got excited over it. He got thrilled over it. And then when he comes to shul every morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, he's still half asleep. He knows he has some meetings he has to run to. And everybody's praying, just to finish it up and to go continue to work, right? Go to work. And everybody's stressed and are in worry and are in stress, and everybody's in a hurry and finish it up. Okay, we need to go. We have a meeting. Read the Torah. Let's go. Let's do. So he said, I decided I rather pray once a week, and I pray quietly. I don't want all this stress. I don't want all this tension. So this nice Jew puts a spotlight on one of the questions that is bothering every Jewish person. What is with this routine? What is this consistency? Why do we pray every day 3 times a day? Sometimes we're distracted, we're not focused, we're disoriented, we don't know what we're saying. Right? Not you, Ari. It's just me. I'm talking about myself. Just me. Right? Isn't it better we have one prayer a week? Right? Or one prayer every, and that prayer would come from the depth of our hearts, and this will be a prayer that connects us, that we feel about, that we care about. Why this consistency, doing the same thing over and over again? Wouldn't it better to be coming from the heart? When I want it, when I feel like, when I'm prepared, when I'm ready, when I have time, I make time for this. And the same question is not only about prayer. All the Jewish life, a Jew wakes up in the morning, he says, Modani, I thank you, God, for returning my soul. He washes his hand, he goes to shul, he wears talit, he wears tefillin. All these mitzvot, there's so many observance. Wouldn't it be nice if we have one observance a day or a week, and we do it right from beginning to end? Why there's all these details of everything? And this question actually brings us to what it says in the Talmud, a very interesting discussion between the rabbis. This is in Yerushalmi Nedarim. What is the most important verse in the Torah? Rabbi Akiva answers, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. Ben Azai responds, Zeh Sefer Toldot Adam. This is the book of the generations of man. This is the Torah that tells us how man was created and introduced. And look what it says in Yaakov in the introduction. He brings another midrash and he says like this. Ben Zoma says what Yoram said earlier. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Listen Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That's the most important. Ben Nana says, love your neighbor as yourself. Quoted above in the name of Rabbi Akiva. Shimon ben Pazi quotes a verse from this week's Parsha. Look at this verse. Read it in Hebrew. Et hakeves ha'echad ta'aseh baboker ve'et hakeves ha'sheni ta'aseh ben arba'im. You shall offer one lamb in the morning as a sacrifice and one lamb in the afternoon. That's the most important verse of the Torah. Rabbi Ploni stood up and said, the halacha is in accordance with Ben Azai. Halacha keven Azai. That's the most important verse of the Torah. One lamb you do in the morning and one lamb you do in the afternoon. Yeah, to offer, sacrifice. Most important. Why is the most? Let's discuss that. Let's see what it means. The matter is not about the offering. The matter is about consistency. You see, people have a hard time being consistent. You get excited over something. You get enthusiastic. You think, I need this, I want this. You get a new work, a new job, a new profession, and you're happy with work. But then after a little time, it goes out. The fire gets out, puts out. Or you get involved in a relationship with someone and everything is thrilling and exciting. And then after some time, right, the most difficult part is being consistent. Holding something for long term. So Ben Pazi says, let's look at what it means. The first thing it says, right, the most important thing, believing in God. Believing in God, knowing God. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, Hear O Israel, the Lord is one. The feeling that I have God next to me, that God is with me, He goes with me. The second thing it says, the most important thing is the social moral, right? To have social moral, to be aware of each other, to help each other. And the third one says, it's all a matter of routine. The routine life. That's the most important thing. And today we're going to discuss this a little bit and see whether or not he was right and how we could relate to that. In what way? Correct. I agree with you. It depends where. Are the words of God. Correct. Yes. Correct. But today we're going to focus on one of them and put the spotlight. Like everything in life. Depends on the perspective, how you look. Depends on what you're talking about, right? So the question we have today is, what is routine? Why is it so important for us? Why does it contribute to us, to our connection with ourselves, with God? And let's see how it comes out in our weekly portion. So Parsha Pinchas, this is our portion this week. And here's what it says. Moses turning to God to look for a replacement. Moses is about to die. He knows that he's not going to enter the promised land. God told him he will die in the desert before entering the land.
He cares about the people. He said, who is going to be the leader instead of me? He turns to God and he says, who is going to take my role? Who will lead? God is answering, He is going to appoint Yehoshua. Joshua was a disciple, a student of Moshe Rabbeinu. And right after that, we have the introduction of Tamid offering. Tamid means constant. Korban Tamid, Olat Tamid, Korban Tamid. Tamid offering constant, something that is done every day as a routine, as schedule, morning and afternoon. Okay, here's what Rashi says. This is from the verse. Here's the verse, Numbers 27. Moses spoke to the Lord saying, let the Lord, the God of spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the congregation who will go forth before them and come before them, who will lead them out and bring them in, so that the congregation of the Lord will not be like a ship without a shepherd. And here's what the answer goes on a few verses onwards. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command the children of Israel and say to them, my offering, my food for my offering, my fire offering, a spirit of satisfaction for me, you shall take care to offer to me in an appointed time. Apparently it's unrelated. Moses is asking, who is going to lead me? And God said, make sure everybody brings an offering every day. Rashi explains, command the children of Israel. What is it stated above? Let the Lord appoint. The Holy One, blessed be He, said to him, before you command me regarding my children, command my children regarding me. This is an analog of a princess who was about to depart from the world and was instructing her husband about her children. And he replied, before you instruct me about them, instruct them about me. As he stated in the Sifri. In Sifri, there's an analogy, a story with the princess who's about to die. And she calls her husband and she says, I want you to make a commitment, to make a promise that you will educate the children, that you will take care of the children, you will make sure they have good habits, they have good education, and that they're following the right path. So he told her husband, he said, why do you talk to me about the children? Why don't you call the children and talk to them about me? Wouldn't it be more effective if they listen to you say that than I would say that you said it? Wouldn't it be more effective, more productive to call the children? So Moses is telling God, who's going to take over me? Find someone, find a leader who makes sure that the Jews will follow the right path, will not deviate, will not do things that are wrong. So God says to Moses, what are you talking to me about the leader? Why don't you make sure the Jews are following the right path? Talking to the Jews, instructing them to do something. What is that something? The Tamid offering. The continual offering, the offering that is made every morning and every afternoon. We just commemorated on Sunday a fast day. Do you know Sunday was a fast day? Yom Tzom, Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, 17th of Tammuz. In that fast day, we commemorated the end of the besiege of Jerusalem, where they broke into Jerusalem, into the holy city, the Roman Empire, before destroying the temple. And they started the grand massacre for 3 weeks, which are the 3 weeks we are right at, the 3 weeks that are called Ben HaMetzarim, between the troubles. We had one trouble that the wall was broken and they went in, and this took place for 3 weeks until Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which is the day they burned down the holy temple. Nisraf Beit HaMikdash, Safu Beit HaMikdash. So Chazal is telling us about this Tamid offering, about this offering that they had in the holy temple. It took 3 years for the Romans to get into Jerusalem. And this is what Chazal is telling us why it took them so long. Oh, I'm sorry. This is what 17th of Tammuz I just told you on Sunday. So there were 5 bad things that happened on 17th of Tammuz and 5 on the 9th of Av. The 17th of Tammuz, the tables of the Holy Law were broken. Moses coming down from the mountain. Remember, Moses went up to the mountain one day after Shavuot. Shavuot is the 6th of Sivan. אתה יודע, גיא, ו' בסיוון זה שבועות, סיוון זה החודש הקודם, ו' בסיוון, זין הוא עלה למעלה, the 7th of Sivan he went up, 40 days later, 17th of Tammuz, he came down, and the people were with the golden calf, right? Worshipping the golden calf, he broke the tablets. That was on the 17th of Tammuz, the first thing. The second thing, on that day, the continual sacrifice ceased. They stopped the Korban HaTamid. Soon we'll tell a story, a fascinating story over that, how exactly it happened. The city of Jerusalem was stormed, and on the same day, Apostomus burned the Holy Law, he burned the Torah and placed an idol in the temple. He also placed an idol in the place of the temple. And let's look at what the Talmud is telling us in Baba Kama. How were they able to storm into Jerusalem? How did they able to break the rule, to break the law, the wall, and get in? The Mishnah teaches us that one may not raise pigs anywhere. There is a rule in Israel, in Eretz Israel, in the land of Israel. By the way, this rule is practiced by the state of Israel as well, that you're not supposed to grow pigs on Israel's soil. There is Kibbutz Mizra, the infamous Kibbutz Mizra, Noda Leshivtza, that they found their way to bypass the rules. You know, Jews are they like to. So Mizra, they grow them on artificial soil. You're not supposed to grow them on Israel's soil, so they make artificial soil, and they elevated. Anyway. So the Talmud says one may not raise pigs anywhere. The sages taught in a Baraita, the background for this halakha. Why is it so? When the members of the house of Hashmonaim monarchy were at the war with each other, Hyrcanus, one of the parties of this war, was inside the besieged Jerusalem, while his brother Aristobulus, the other contender to the throne, was on the outside. Look at that. The Romans are threatening the Jews, and you have two Jews, two brothers, one on this side, the other on the other side. And every day the people inside would lower down money in a box from the temple walls to purchase sheep to sacrifice, Korban Tamid, the offering of Tamid. And those on the other side would take the money and send up sheep to them over the wall of the daily offering. There was a certain elder there who was familiar with Greek wisdom, and he said to those besieging Jerusalem, as long as they occupy themselves with the temple service, they will not be delivered into your hands. The next day they lowered down money in a box as usual, but this time they sent up to them a pig. When the pig reached the midpoint of the temple wall, it stuck its hooves into the wall, and Eretz Israel quaked over an area of 400 parsah by 400 parsah. So the story is, this is how they started the destruction. The Korban Tamid, the offering of Tamud, which protected the Jews, the offering they brought every day. While they were besieged, the Romans, the Babylonians, they couldn't get into them, right? It was 3 years the besiege, and they couldn't get in. They would not surrender. They had everything they needed. All they needed was sheep for Beit HaMikdash, lamb for Beit HaMikdash. And instead of giving them lamb one day, they gave them pig, and that's where the story ended. On that day, they were able to break the wall and to get into Jerusalem, like we just commemorated. So what is about this offering of Tamid? We must say there's something special about this offering that other offerings don't have. What is this concept of consistency? How do we relate to that? Why is it the source of our power? Why could we say that this is the most important thing? For the offering of Tamid, what do we do today? We don't have a temple. We say every day you need to bring that offering. We don't have a temple. So our sages, what did they do? They conducted the services, the prayers, instead of Tamid. Tfilot keneged tmidim tiknum. Let's see what Maimonides says about the source of prayer. Here is the laws of prayer. 1:1. This is what Maimonides, how it starts. It is a mitzvah, a positive Torah commandment to pray every day. As Exodus states, you shall serve God your Lord. Tradition teaches us that this service is prayer. As Deuteronomy states, and serve him with all your heart. And our sages said, which is the service of the heart? This is prayer. So Rambam says, Maimonides says, prayer is serving God. That means, look at the following. The number of prayer is not prescribed in the Torah, nor that it's prescribed a specific formula for prayer. Also, according to Torah law, there are no fixed time for prayers. A person who was eloquent would offer many prayers and requests. Conversely, a person who was inarticulate would speak as well as he could and whatever he desires. Similarly, the number of prayers was dependent on each person's ability. Some would pray once daily, others several times. Maimonides says prayer is our connection with God. It has to come from the heart. There's no rules. What time you do it, what day you do it, how you do it, what language you speak, what do you say to God, what words you use. All these things are added. But actually the original mitzvah of prayer is to serve God, to turn to God, to pray to God. That's what prayer is about. But here's Maimonides continues. Nachmanides says the same. He says, this whole part of prayer is not mandatory, but rather we should turn to God when troubles occur. Our eyes and hearts are to Him as servants to their master. Ka'avadim el Adon. Servants to their master. That's what Nachmanides says. We turn to God because we're dependent on Him. And when do we turn to God? When do you call your landlord? When there's a leak, right? When there's issues, right? You don't want to speak to your landlord. You're afraid he's going to raise your rent, right? When do you call him? When there's trouble, right? That's what Nachmanides says. You turn to God when you need Him. Well, it turns out we need Him more than what we think we do. But here's what Rambam says. That's just the beginning. Here's how Rambam continues. When Israel was exiled in the time of the wicked Nebuchadnezzar, they became interseparated in Persia and Greece and other nations. Children were born to them in these foreign countries, and those children's language was confused. When Ezra and his court saw this, they established 18 blessings in sequence. They also decreed that the number of prayers correspond to the number of sacrifices, which means 2 prayers every day, corresponding to the 2 daily sacrifices. The prayer that corresponds to the daily morning sacrifice is called Shacharit prayer. The prayer that corresponds to the daily sacrifice offered in the afternoon is called Mincha prayer. They also instituted a prayer to be recited at night, since the limbs of the daily afternoon offering could be burnt the whole night. So Ezra, Ubeidino, and Ezra and his court saw that the people were confused. They didn't know what they're talking about. They didn't know how to turn to God. They were not sure what to do, how to do. They needed a framework. They needed something to work with. They needed something to be built into. So Ezra came out and gave Tfilat Shmoneh Esrei. You know Shmoneh Esrei Brachot, the 18 blessing we say in Tfilat Amidah. That was brought by Ezra. Hey Marty. And and there's 2 prayers that are brought. You could sit here if you want, but the cookies are there, so you need to have reached the cookies. Yeah.
So one of the things that well known about Rabbi historically was that because there was at this time, and even prior to that, there was a general understanding that the spiritual condition of man was generally so weak that we needed multiple touch points in order to be refreshed and to ascertain our spiritual azimuth.
So that's why prayers were introduced in such a way. It's beautiful. I can't help but agree. So that's Ezra. So Marty, we were just saying from Maimonides that originally prayer, if you don't mind, take the bag off of the books, just not on the books. Thank you. It's just okay. So Maimonides says prayer. What is prayer? Is you turn to God. You turn to God with your own words whenever you feel like, whenever you need, when you need God to help you, when you need Him to instruct you, and so on. But that's originally. But after several generations, people got confused, people got distracted, people turned to their iPhones and to Siri before they turned to God, right? So you don't have an iPhone, but it's the same. So people are confused, are distracted, are not focused, disoriented, not sure what to do, how to do. Came Ezra and said, this is going to be the framework. There's going to be a prayer book, and there will be a prayer, and this is going to be written in such a way. And those prayers were introduced because of the offerings we had in the temple. The first one, the morning prayer, was for the morning offering. The afternoon prayer was for the afternoon offering. There was no more, just 2 offerings a day. The offering of Tamid, to sacrifice. The afternoon prayer was called Mincha, right? And for the Filat Arvit, it's because all the limbs and the organs are burnt on the temple. So this brings us to, and also, another source in Shulchan Aruch. This is what prayer is instead of offering. Prayer takes place at the sacrifice. One must therefore take care that Shmoneh Esrei be recited with devout intent that is required in offering the sacrifice. No other thought may be joined with it, just as an inappropriate thought can disqualify sacrifice. It should be recited while standing, just as service in the Holy Temple is performed while standing. One should have a fixed place for prayer, just as each of the sacrifices had a fixed place for its slaughter. It is appropriate to have fine clothes set aside for prayer, recalling the priestly garments. So, according to Shulchan Aruch, according to Shulchan Aruch, prayer is like offering. We don't have a holy temple. We don't go around slaughtering lambs and sheep
all over the place, or not most of us don't, right? So what do? We stay in shul, we stay in synagogue, and we have the intention, in the time of the temple, when the priest was bringing an offering, if he had something in his mind besides what he was supposed to think about, the whole offering was disqualified. Would you imagine how gentle were these things, that you have to have full focus, you have to be completely focused on what you're doing, and you shouldn't have any other thought, whether he's thinking to eat the offering where he's not supposed to eat it, or to eat it at the time he's not supposed to eat it, and so on and so forth. These things will disqualify the offering. So how much more so when we're standing in prayer to God, it's only us and God, we should keep our focus, we should keep our strength, and we should make sure that this correlates to what is required from us. So that brings us back to the first question we asked. So how can we focus on doing it every day? Wouldn't it be better to focus all our energy on one prayer a week, or one prayer a month, or whatever formula we could come up with, and do that prayer with full intent, standing in one place, being all into it, and not being distracted, and having standing and all the other rules that were required for it. So here's a story. I brought it before. I told you that story before, but I'll tell you it again because it's a beautiful story. The story about Yitzchak Nemes. Yitzchak Nemes was a trader of stamps in the United States. He used to travel all over the world and make businesses. And one time he was offered a very good business with a Jew in the name of Tenkel. That was his last name, Tenkel. And they were negotiating for 6 months for this deal. It was a very big deal. He was going to buy this whole stock, and he was to produce stamps for this. He was producing for countries, for states. A big deal. And they finally got to an agreement, and they wrote a contract. And just before signing the contract, they started fighting again. They started fighting on the conditions, on the price, on this. After everything was summarized, after everything was already on paper, again, arguments, my side, your side, lawyers. At the end of the day, it blew up. They didn't go through the deal. Nemes took it very to heart. He said, 6 months I spent my time over nothing. I wasted my time. It can't be. It can't be. I wasted my time 6 months discussing with this person. And he started thinking, everything is divine providence. Everything is from above. This fellow is also Jewish. So maybe this whole back and forth between us was for me to get closer to him and try to encourage him for being a little more Jewish, for doing something about his Judaism. So he requested another meeting with him, and this guy didn't want to see him. He said, I'm not going for that. Okay, no business. Forget no business. I promise you I'll meet with you, and we're not going to discuss any other business. Okay. So he goes to see him, and he said, throughout the 6 months, I was in your office, you were in my office, I was in your house, you were in my house. We know each other, we came to understanding. Okay, maybe our business dispute is too large, the bridge is too big to gap, but we still became encounter to each other. We know each other. So he said, I want you to do something a little more. This Nemes was a Chabad guy, and he said, I want you to do a little more something about your Judaism. Maybe our business is not supposed to be about stamps. Maybe the business between us is about spirituality, about religion. So he said, I don't know, whatever. He said, maybe you should try to keep kosher. Keep kosher. So he said, Shabbat is too much, maybe tefillin, he doesn't know, he wants to keep kosher. He says he wants to keep kosher. So Tenkel said, I don't mind keeping kosher, but his wife, it will be too difficult for her, to separate the dishes, milk and dairy and meaty, and only for buying in this supermarket, that supermarket. He said, I don't think she will go for it. I'm honest with you, I don't think she's going to go for it. So he says, okay, think about it, let me know. Anyway, a few months later, Tenkel calls Nemes, and he says to him that unfortunately his wife passed away. So Nemes went to, give condolences, to comfort this guy Tenkel, and he says to him, I remember I was talking to you about this whole business deal we had, and maybe it wasn't for that. Maybe now when your wife is no longer here, maybe we can work something out with keeping kosher. So he started crying. He says, my wife isn't here. I can't cook. What are you talking to me about kosher? How can I get by? He says, okay, here's what we can do. This Nemes guy is a Cheverman, Cheverman. So he said, I'm going to come every week from Brooklyn. This Tenko lived in the Bronx. And he said, I'm going to come every week from Brooklyn. And I'll buy you food. I'll get food from a caterer, right? You have catering services. And I'll get you food. And he says, I'll come once a week and I'll give you 7 different dishes of food, the catering. And I will get it to you. So he said, okay. What can he say? He said, okay. So since that week, every week, Nemes changed all of his schedule. And it doesn't matter where he used to travel in the world. He made sure to be at home on Thursday. So on Thursday, he can go buy food and deliver it personally to this old fellow.
All the way from Brooklyn to the Bronx?
Wow. Yes, he used to, right.
Even with the traffic?
I don't know what it is. That was, anyway, so, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of money. He never asked for payment. He never asked for money because he did it as a favor to him. He used to do it every week. He used to do it. A year and a half goes by. Nemes travels, doesn't matter where he's in the world. Thursday, told his wife, Thursday I have to be home. Thursday I have something important. 80 weeks. He counted the weeks. 80 weeks he was going every week to Tenkel's house and giving him food. One of the Thursdays that he came, Tenkel said, I got to speak to you something. He said, the food that is it's too salty. Okay, just no problem. I'm going to the caterer. I'm a VIP customer, I'll tell them to put half of the salt, no salt, whatever. And he said, no, I got to tell you something. He said, the food is too salty. It's not so tasty to me. And he said, okay, well, tell me what you like. We'll work something out. You can change the recipe. He says, no, I have to tell you something. I don't eat the food you bring. I don't. He says, what do you mean? He says, I don't eat the food. What do you do with the food? So he points to the dog. He says, I give it to the dog. Give it to the dog. And then Nemes thinks, this whole detour in his life, for a year and a half, he's been traveling, spending money, spending time, spending energy, strength, canceling business deals because he has to be in New York for Thursday. And at the end of the day, it goes to the dog. Of course, he was very hurt. And he stopped coming. He stopped going. He didn't go. Years go by. Nemes and his wife became older fellows. Their children grew up and scattered around the world like Chabad. We got children here, children in Russia, children in America, children in Israel, like the Chabad style. And Nemes and his wife, they're older now. And they want to have some Shabbat, there's nobody home, right? It's just them. Everybody's living in a different country. So they used to host students. They came to Shabbat to Crown Heights, to Brooklyn. So there was a group of students, there was an organization still active and alive and kicking that brings Jewish students from across the United States and Canada to Shabbatons, to Shabbat in Brooklyn to see what Jewish life is. So once they had a student in their house, and he was very weird. He wouldn't eat anything, and he wouldn't talk to anyone. There was a group of people, and how it's like. They give him some nechaim and say something, tell a story, where are you from, what do you do? This guy, nothing. Quiet. And he says, they ask him, what do you do? We're doing nothing. Okay, tell us, what are you doing here? Why are you here? He said, I was intrigued to see how Jewish people are like. They asked him, are you Jewish? Yeah, I'm Jewish. Yeah, of course I'm Jewish. My mother's Jewish. My father's Jewish. But he said, I got to tell you something. This student says, my grandfather told me before he died, that there was one Jewish fellow from Crown Heights that used to come every week for a year and a half to give him food. And that Jew gave him food, but my grandfather, of blessed memory, didn't eat the food. He gave it to the dog. I didn't believe. The student says, old people, they make up stories, dog, a year and a half, food, Bronx, food. I said, something is wrong with this guy. It can't be somebody who left everything and came to bring the food, and you didn't even eat the food you gave it. I said, forget it, it's not going to. But, I had questions about the story. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. So I asked my father, my mother asked, they said, oh, yeah, remember this guy came from where? They didn't know your name, didn't know the name. He didn't realize he was sitting at the Shabbat table of the same person that brought the food. He didn't know, right? He said he came from Crown Heights. I went to Crown Heights. I'm trying to see how people are like here. I want to know who is this person, or if I can't find this person, at least how did this come about? How did this person came with this? And obviously the Nemes started crying. He said it was actually him. And he didn't realize, right? It was just by God that he came to their house and that Shabbat, and he told them it was him. And the student took it so much to heart that this gentleman who's still alive made all that effort for his grandfather, that the same moment he took a decision that he's going to keep kosher and that he's going to keep Shabbat. And that student went on and became a religious fellow, and he became a part of the Chabad also, Chabad movement. So all that investment of Nimitz for a year and a half, well, the food went to the dog. First it was 6 months of negotiating with business, and then he thought the dog had a name. Maybe that's not mentioned in the story. You should say whether the dog was Jewish or not. That's another question. Could be. I don't know. A dog is a dog. It's just a dog. I don't know. No offense to all the dogs. No offense to all the dogs who are watching us now, but a dog is a dog. Yeah. So he said all that 6 months of business and then a year and a half of it just doesn't go in vain. It doesn't waste. God saw that investment, and it took another generation for that to be digested, so to speak, and for that to bear fruit. So a person is a reflection of his habits. Life is a collection of thought, of actions, of act, of speech that design our life. And the person is not the big, exciting experiences he has abroad. Who is the person? It's their daily life, their daily routine. How often you travel? You're a bad example. You travel all the time. But most people, you travel on vacation, you go see a tourist spot, you go see an attraction, you do a check on your long list that only gets longer, Marty. You never say enough, huh? It's never enough for you. Your long list, and you make a check. But then you're coming back home. This is home. This is where you are. This is where you live. This is who you are. This is the people you're associated. This is your life. The famous saying, life is what happens to us when we make other plans. You know what it means? We make other plans and eventually something else happens. That's life. Your plans, great. But what really happens is what life is all about. And that's exactly why routine, and these Jewish routine specifically, is more important. The first words we say when we open our mouth in the morning, we open our eyes, we say, I thank you, God, for returning my soul. The first act, we wash our hands. All these things we do on a daily basis, on a constant basis, nearly on autopilot, things that are done as if we don't put much thought in it. These are the things that designs, that makes us who we are, that affects us tremendously. And, people that are married, they know well that what is a relationship? A relationship is not that party you go to, or the party or that vacation you have to go to. The relationship is how things are like in the kitchen when you're upset and your wife is not really in the mood, and how you're willing to start helping a little bit, washing the dishes, taking care of the kids. Those little things that you do for each other. That's what relationship is about. That's how life is built together. All these exciting, the beers, all these ads, 9 minutes forever, all these exciting moments. These are just moments. They're named exciting moments. But these are just moments. They fade away. What stays is the routine, the great part. And if you make it right, then your life is happy. Then your life is full and is complete and is also filled with content. So that's what the Rebbe explains also about, this is what the Sefer HaChinuch brings about, why God tells us all kinds of things to remember Yetziat Mitzrayim, to remember the Exodus. We have all kinds of mitzvot that we need to do in order to remember the Exodus. He said, why we shouldn't do just one thing? What is this whole constant memory? Sefer HaChinuch says, why would God, may He be blessed, commands us to do all these commandments to commemorate that miracle? Would we not remember with one commemoration, such that it is not be forgotten from the mouth of our offsprings? You must know, says the Sefer HaChinuch, that a man is acted upon according to his actions, and his heart and all his thoughts always follow after the action that he does, whether good or bad. And even he who in his heart is a complete sinner, and all the desires of his heart are only for evil, if his spirit shall be enlightened, and he will put his effort and actions to persist in Torah and commandments, even if not for the sake of heaven, he shall immediately incline towards the good, for the hearts are drawn after the actions. In Hebrew we call it acharei ha'peulot nimshachim halevavot. The hearts are drawn after the actions. People think that first I need to believe and I need to understand and then I will do. But Sefer HaChinuch says, if you are trained to do, you will eventually also have the thoughts and also have the aspiration and also have you'll have the inspiration, you'll be enthusiastic, you'll like it, you want it. All you need to do is do. All you need to do is act. For the hearts are drawn after the actions. So God telling us, you have to do things in that order and you have to do it every day. Why is it so? Because we are not in a state that we are always illuminated, enlightened, always filled with energy and strength and will to the desire to God. We're human beings and we're busy with many things. God says, put into your schedule, into your routine, put all these little minor details and you'll see how you connect. Because your heart follows your actions. If you are doing the right things, you will also have the right feelings, the right emotions, the right energy, and you'll also be drawn to the right place. This also relates to also business. You know, people admire genius people. Genius, innovative, right? People who have the flash of an idea. But how many of those are there? Most people who get to a certain level, it's because they work hard and they do the same thing over and over, one day after the other, consistently, doing the same thing, doing the same routine. People who work hard, who invest, who are into this, those are the people who succeed. There are no shortcuts, right? There's no way around it. Somebody who is merited to be a genius, smarter than a genius, this is a blessing of God, there's nothing I can do about it. But most of us, we have to work hard. And the harder you work, the better it gets. That's how it is. So, there's a story about this girl who was dating several men, and she couldn't find her basher. She couldn't find her beloved one, her chosen one. And the problem is around her, the rumor is that she's an egocentric type of person. She likes herself more than others. We all like ourselves more than others. But she was a little more obsessed with that. So she consulted with the Lubavitcher Rebbe how to change that quality. So the Rebbe said that she studied in an institution, in a high school, not high school, seminary, and there was a dormitory there. So the Rebbe said that every evening, when there is dinner, when food, she would take the food and she would distribute it to all the other girls, to all the other people. And he said, by doing this will help you get to a feeling that you need to give something of yourself to others, that you need to give or to distribute, you need to be there for people. So he said, going to a shrink, going to a psychologist, prescribing medicine, going to depression sessions, alcoholics, all these things, I'm not sure that's going to help. But if you start practicing, take the food every evening, you will be the one in charge of distributing the food. You'll do it with a smile. You'll give something to others. you'll be used to it, accustomed to it. It will also penetrate onward. It will be a part of you. You have to get used to it. You'll get used to it, and that's how you'll change your nature. So this, by the way, answers another question. This offering is called the offering of Tamid. Tamid in Hebrew is always. But this offering was not brought, they didn't bring it always, they just brought it 2 times a day. Why is it called Tamid? Always. Why is it continuous? The Rebbe says like this: when starting the day with an offering, with coming closer to God through uttering Modeh Ani, this offering is called Tamid, continual. Its influence is not limited to the same moment, but rather has a continuous effect. This reminds a Jew to make of his material things an offering to God throughout the day. Why is it called Tamid? Because it might happen just 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, 10 minutes in the evening, around that time, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. You have 24 hours. But those few minutes that are dedicated to that prayer, to this offering, affects the whole day, that the whole day is transformed. Everything in life is transformed through simple acts, through simple utterances of words of Modeh Ani in the morning, of a prayer later. This has a tremendous effect over everything. And this is what Chassidut brings about Torah and Mitzvot. Torah and Mitzvot, the bond we have with God. There's 2 ways to relate to it. There's a way which is dry observance. What you need to do, just follow the rules. Follow the rules. Don't need to ask too many questions, and don't need to look for too many answers. Just follow the rules. But there's another way of doing it. There's acting out of enthusiasm. And that comes about through following the rules. In other words, the first part leads you to the second part only if you want it. If you don't want it, if you're fighting against it, if you don't want to get inspired, you'll never get inspired. But if you want to get inspired and you're looking for the recipe to get inspired, just do the same things over and over again, and it will end up penetrating. It will end up coming and being a part of who you are, a part of what you do, and that will have an effect over the whole day. So that's if you would like, the answer to the question of why consistency is so important, or why God wants from us the same thing over and over again, because that's the only way to influence us. If you want to have sessions of speech, of inspirational talks, of all these things they offer abroad, maybe that's nice, but the question is, you get excited over it, but then it fades away. Nothing stays of it. You hear a good idea, you hear somebody says something interesting, and then it just goes by. It comes in from here and it goes out the same way it went in. But if you do something and you act upon it and it becomes a part of your life, it doesn't go anywhere. On the contrary, it becomes bigger, it becomes better, it becomes enhanced, it becomes more committing, and it becomes a part of you. So that's what God tells us. You do the same things over and over again. You have a prayer, you pray. You couldn't do it the first day, you do the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and eventually it will be a part of who you are, and then you'll know that you're going on the right path. Okay, any questions? No questions. Okay, let's get rid of this thing. Stop.